Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome here and a warm welcome to this North Sea Summit here in Ostend. The city of Ostend is a city with a rich European history, influences, Belgian influences, Dutch influences, French, British, and many other European influences, such as so many places in Belgium. But above all, one of the cities which is the main gateways to the offshore energy industry that we see developing at such a sprawling speed over the last years. Here in Ostend, we follow up to the first North Sea Summit, which took place in Esbjerg. And so first of all, dear Mette, I would like to thank you for the excellent initiative that you took in Esbjerg, and really thank you for passing the torch to us to use the platform that you created. We met in Esbjerg. Since over 1 year, we have made such a progress. First of all, while this coalition of 4 countries has become a bit larger, extremely happy to welcome Ireland, France, Norway, and our virtual North Sea country of Luxembourg. Extremely happy to have you here, and I think this is a moment more than ever. This is a moment where, as European countries, we demonstrate what we are capable of. We demonstrate it to our citizens and to our enterprises, and we demonstrate it to tackle one of the biggest challenges of our times. First of all, we show that the climate crisis can be addressed. Secondly, we show that we can pass from innovation to action. Third, we show that we can produce affordable energy for our citizens and for our companies. And we also show that we as Europeans, we take our own destiny in our own hands. Let's face it, the only way to achieve real progress on transformation is by working together as European countries. And when we work together, we are capable of so much. Working together, this is very concrete. This means building interconnections, strengthening our green electricity grid. We have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. And look at what we did over the last year. If we would have said 1 year ago that we would have gotten this far in disconnecting from fossil fuels from Russia, no one would have believed that we would have been able to do this. Today, this summit marks an important milestone. A milestone to make of the North Sea the biggest green power plant in the world. We aim for a capacity of 130 gigawatts by 2030, 300 gigawatts by 2050. By then, we will be able to provide electricity for 300 million households on the European continent. Our goal is to deliver a greener Europe, a Europe which is energy independent, and a Europe that can grow in a sustainable way, that can continue creating jobs, and especially that can keep heavy industry, chemistry, and all these activities here on the European continent. Dear Ursula, we are extremely happy to have you here as the President of the European Commission. We know that we can count on you in pushing us and being ambitious, in helping us in standardizing, and really helping us to go from innovation to standardizing to implementing. And we know that we have you on our side, and we're extremely happy of the driving force that you have shown over the past years. Of course, we cannot do this alone. You will see here heads of governments, heads of states, but the real force we have is our private sector. And I'm extremely happy at this summit to have more than 120 of our finest companies who are present here, who will be working together between them, but also often in a public-private partnership, to making sure that we can realize the things that we announce. Very often when we announce things, it's very good. When you realize them, this is where we really make the effort. So I would like to thank all of you, and I will start with giving the word to Mette. You did an incredible effort last year in organizing it in Esbjerg. We were really impressed by the gigantic turbines. we wanted to show something which was a bit impressive as well, which is our ships. But really happy, Mette, to have you back here and that you started this initiative.
Thank you so much. Last year we met in Esbjerg in Denmark to kickstart our political vision for the North Sea as a green power plant for Europe. And thank you, Alexander, for inviting us today to take our vision further on now. I think today we are taking an important step in realizing our common ambition. 9 countries from the North Sea region are committed to offshore wind and green transition as the future of our energy supply in our countries. We are raising the bar. 300 gigawatt of offshore wind in the North Sea by 2050, the largest electricity system in Europe. It's offshore, it's green, and it is European. Last week, the Danish government committed to an even faster build-out of offshore wind. A 5-fold increase in production from offshore wind. We are speeding up green transition in Denmark. And I think all of us need to speed up our green ambitions for, of course, a number of good reasons. First of all, because of Russia's brutal war in Ukraine, it has made it absolutely clear that we need to produce more energy ourselves. We urgently need to combat climate change for a second reason, and more green energy will strengthen our energy security as Europeans, and of course also provide reliable energy prices for our households and for our businesses. But there are still some barriers to the green transition. We must secure our supply chains. We have to build the European industry stronger. We need to reduce the bureaucratic rules. And we have to align what we want when it comes to biodiversity and the environment and the ambitions we have on climate. I think all these are important discussions we also have to do with our businesses. So we need to keep on going forward. We have to do it together. And this is what we seek to do today here. So thank you once again, Alexander, for inviting us.
Thank you, Mette. Ursula, I talked about the leadership role you take, and you've led us through the different crises. This crisis is one which we can use to make a step forward, and really happy that you that with plans like the Green Deal and so on, you've shown the direction. Extremely happy to have you here among us.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Thank you very much for inviting me and for hosting us here in Ostende, the city by the sea. And indeed, as you said, a lot has changed and improved since last year when we had our first meeting in Esbjerg. We should not forget it was the year of a severe energy crisis that was triggered by the Russian war. But we have managed together to get rid of our dependency on Russian fossil fuels. We have diversified away from Russia to reliable partners. The European people have saved 20% of their energy consumption, but most importantly, we have massively invested in renewables. So despite this crisis, we managed to keep the economy growing on one hand, but on the other hand, we were able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. 2 figures are here important. While globally the greenhouse gas emission did rise last year by 1%, in the European Union, the greenhouse gas emissions were reduced by 2.5%. In other words, there was a formidable boost in this year of crisis to renewable production in the European Union. We have doubled the additional deployment of renewable energy last year, and we have, for the very first time, generated more electricity from wind and sun compared to gas. Renewables are crucial for us to reach our goals in 2050. It's all about speeding up. And as you know, the European Union has just raised its 2030 targets for renewables from 32% up to more than 42%. So I very strongly welcome the Ostend Declaration. It's great. It's doubling down on the targets set in Iceberg for offshore wind production. And it will give us all the wind we need in our sails to set the course onto climate neutrality. The European Commission will help to deliver on these targets. And this is why we have the Green Deal Industrial Plan. All our proposals to implement this industrial plan are on the table now. First, the Net Zero Industry Act that will help to create a conducive environment for clean tech industry. It will support innovation and, very important, the manufacturing at scale of clean tech. Second, our reform of the electricity market design will incentivize the use of renewable compared to fossil fuels. And third, our Critical Raw Materials Act aims at securing the supply of the materials that are so badly needed to build wind turbines and other clean tech. One very last point on renewable hydrogen. I'm very glad that we have stepped up the ambition on renewable hydrogen. Green hydrogen can be the game changer for Europe, our industries, and our economy. And the North Sea region has the potential to produce massive amounts of green hydrogen and to become the main corridor for imports. So, of course, I am very happy, and I would like to invite the countries here today to work on cross-border hydrogen projects. The Commission is ready to support as much as possible. And in parallel, we will make sure that the hydrogen bank that we will create is operational by the end of this year to create a full-fledged European hydrogen market. So in sum, Europe has become the house of renewables, and the North Sea is becoming the powerhouse of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Alors, Emmanuel, quel plaisir que la France vient de rejoindre la coalition de la mer du Nord, un pays avec tellement d'expertise au niveau d'énergie et qui voit le potentiel des éoliennes, et donc extrêmement heureux de t'avoir ici à Ostende.
Merci beaucoup, merci Monsieur le Premier ministre, cher Alexander, pour l'accueil, et heureux d'être ici à Ostende, et merci Madame la Première ministre, cher Metteux, d'avoir initié cette alliance. En effet, beaucoup de choses ont été dites, mais à neuf et avec le soutien de la Commission européenne, je crois que la stratégie qui est déployée ici est cohérente avec notre triple objectif. Plus de souveraineté, tenir nos objectifs en matière de climat et continuer à défendre l'industrie européenne. Et ces trois objectifs sont conciliables en déployant des programmes tels que celui-ci. Avec en effet cette volonté commune de produire 300 gigawatts à hauteur de 2050 et des coopérations dans tous les domaines, nous nous mettons en capacité de produire en européen par nous-mêmes justement cette électricité décarbonée et de réduire notre dépendance à des tiers et de le faire conformément à nos objectifs climatiques. À cela s'ajoute le fait qu'un tel objectif s'appuie et doit s'appuyer de manière croissante sur une expertise européenne. Et il nous faut consolider, je crois que c'est l'une des forces des coopérations qui se nouent ici et de ce que nous voulons faire avec la Commission, eh bien, en amont comme en aval, la capacité à renforcer les industriels européens. Gagner en souveraineté, en autonomie sur les matériaux critiques et tout ce qu'il faut pour produire et assembler ces éoliennes, avoir un assemblage européen et avoir des industriels européens, nous venons d'ailleurs de le voir en termes de dragage, qui sont associés à la construction de ces grands équipements. Et derrière, eh bien, cette capacité de production nous permettra de produire de l'hydrogène vert européen pour nos industries. Et je crois que ce qui est important derrière cette stratégie, au-delà de la production d'énergie décarbonée européenne, c'est d'avoir une approche très cohérente et de se dire nous voulons une industrie européenne pour la produire. Et ne pas répliquer parfois les erreurs que nous avons pu faire il y a quelques décennies, où quand nous avons massivement déployé, par exemple, du photovoltaïque, nous avons importé beaucoup des matériaux dont nous avions besoin. C'est une opportunité donc en termes de résilience, de souveraineté et de Made in Europe auquel nous croyons. La France s'inscrit dans cette stratégie avec un objectif de 40 gigawatts pour ce qui nous concerne, un pacte éolien en mer qui a été signé il y a maintenant un an avec un investissement massif de 40 milliards d'euros sur les 15 prochaines années, 20 000 emplois répartis sur tout le territoire français, en particulier dans l'industrie de l'assemblage d'éoliennes sur notre sol. La clé derrière tout cela, et je crois que justement notre capacité à agir en Européens sera déterminante, c'est d'accélérer les projets et leur déploiement. Un dernier mot pour dire que pour accompagner cette stratégie, il nous faut poursuivre, comme la Commission l'a lancé, une réforme du marché électrique européen. Et il nous faudra développer encore plus avant les interconnexions électriques européennes, qui est un élément clé pour nous rendre encore plus efficaces. Merci beaucoup, Alexandre.
Merci. Dear Olaf, you know the Belgian coast quite well by now. A few months ago, you were in Zeebrugge to visit our LNG infrastructure. We've had a very long-standing partnership on the energy domain, and I'm sure that maintaining economic activity and definitely heavy industry in Europe is for you also a priority.
Schönen Dank. Schönen Dank für die Initiative, dass wir hier fortsetzen, was in Esbjerg begonnen hat, und auch für die ganze Arbeit, die damit verbunden ist, denn es ist in der Tat ein ganz wichtiges Ereignis, das uns hier zusammenführt. Ich will kurz erläutern, warum die Initiative so wichtig ist. Erstens, die vergangenen Monate haben eindrucksvoll gezeigt, wie zentral es ist, dass wir in Europa in Energiefragen eng zusammenarbeiten. Denn wir sind auf unserem Kontinent und natürlich auch auf den Inseln, die davor liegen, darauf angewiesen, dass wir miteinander eng verbunden sind. Die Energieleitungen sind Lebensadern Europas. Wir produzieren Energie längst nicht mehr nur für uns selbst, sondern auch für unsere Nachbarn und umgekehrt. Nach dem russischen Überfall auf die Ukraine mussten wir uns unabhängig machen von Energieleistungen aus Russland. Das haben wir geschafft mit Unterstützung unserer Freunde und Nachbarn. Und ich bin dafür unverändert sehr dankbar. Das hat mich ja auch das letzte Mal nach Zeebrugge geführt und an viele andere Orte. Zweitens gehen wir eine noch größere Herausforderung jetzt sehr entschlossen an. Wir wollen in Deutschland bis 2045 klimaneutral wirtschaften, unsere Energie aus Windkraft, Solarenergie und Biomasse gewinnen und auf fossile Energien verzichten zum Schutz unseres Klimas. Windenergie auf See birgt dafür ein ganz, ganz großes Potenzial. Und mit der Nordsee haben wir das Energie-Powerhouse quasi vor der Haustür. Seit unserem Treffen im vergangenen Jahr in Esbjerg ist unser Kreis hier deutlich größer geworden, wie man ja an diesem breiten Podium ganz gut sehen kann. Gemeinsam wollen wir die Energie der Nordsee erschließen und bis 2030 ca. 120 Gigawatt Offshore-Windparks installieren. Dafür haben wir auch schon eine große Reihe wichtiger Entscheidungen getroffen. National und auch auf europäischer Ebene haben wir den Rahmen für den Ausbau der erneuerbaren Energien deutlich verbessert und die Verfahren beschleunigt. Ich bin ganz besonders der Europäischen Kommission dankbar für die entsprechenden Gesetzesvorschläge, die wir voranbringen konnten. Gemeinsam diskutieren wir regelmäßig in der Nordsee-Energiekooperation, wie wir den Ausbau der Windenergie und der Netze weiter voranbringen können. Unsere Netzbetreiber erarbeiten Konzepte, um Offshore-Strom und Wasserstoff an den Küsten zu nutzen, ihn dort zu produzieren, anzulanden, was den Wasserstoff betrifft. Bei aller Ambition müssen wir drittens aber auch ehrlich genug sagen, die Herausforderungen bleiben groß, sie sind immens und es bleibt noch eine ganze Reihe zu tun. Vor allem, wir müssen schneller werden. Bei der Identifikation von Flächen, bei Genehmigungen, beim Bau von Anlagen und Netzen dürfen wir keine Zeit mehr verlieren. Und gerade wenn wir jetzt genau sehen, welche ungeheuren Möglichkeiten der Stromproduktion und der Wasserstoffproduktion die Nordsee bietet und gleichzeitig wissen, dass oft die industriellen Zentren, die diesen Strom benötigen, gar nicht direkt an der Küste liegen, sondern viele davon zum Beispiel in Deutschland im Südwesten der Republik, dann ist es wichtig, dass wir die Struktur des Netzausbaus immer mitdenken und auch im Blick haben, dass das genauso schnell vorangehen muss, wie die Stromproduktion anläuft. Und das ist etwas, was wir zustande bringen müssen. Wir müssen auch größer denken. Es braucht mehr Anlagen. Wir müssen dafür die notwendigen Lieferketten stärken. Und deshalb brauchen wir gerade hier in Europa eine starke Zulieferindustrie. Ich bin sehr dankbar, dass hier in dem Business-Treffen sehr viele Unternehmen aus Europa, auch aus Deutschland, anwesend sind, dass sie mitarbeiten, dass sie mithelfen werden, dass wir das, was an industrieller Produktion notwendig ist, um diese Sachen mit unseren eigenen Fähigkeiten und Technologien voranzubringen, dass sie das zeigen und dass wir das voranbringen können. Und schließlich, wir müssen besser werden Die raue See erfordert Innovationen, um Wind und Wasserstoff nutzbar zu machen. Und wir müssen, heute ist ein Beispiel dafür, mehr kooperieren. Davon kann ganz Europa profitieren. Und schließlich, auch das hat das letzte Jahr auf brachiale Weise gezeigt, wir müssen unsere Offshore-Industrie effektiv schützen. Hier spielen wir als Anrainer, aber auch die EU und die NATO eine wichtige Rolle. All das wird nur gemeinsam gehen. Und das Treffen hier in Ostende ist ein wichtiger Schritt auf diesem gemeinsamen Weg. Die Erklärung, die wir gleich unterzeichnen, macht das noch einmal deutlich. Und deshalb nochmal vielen Dank, Alexander, für die Einladung und Organisation. Es ist schön, wieder an der Nordsee zu sein. Als früherer Hamburger Bürgermeister weiß ich, das Meer verbindet die Welt. Unsere Verbindung, liebe Freundinnen und Freunde, ist stark und wir profitieren alle davon. An die Arbeit.
Thank you, Olaf. Dear Leo, technically you're not really a North Sea country either, but wind energy is something which Ireland knows extremely well, mostly onshore up to now, but the offshore potential, of course, is a huge one, and extremely happy that you're part of this coalition now as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alexander. Agus Germalga Tom an Osach Fen Shaw in Ostend anew, con an Ostend Declaration of Shinu, Harkian Realtus Naharan, Agus Winter Naharan, our son Rueda, Agus our son an Tauki. My thanks to Alexander for the invitation to be here at today's summit and the opportunity for us in Ireland to join the Ostend Declaration. And I really want to thank Belgium for its leadership in taking this initiative, but also when it comes to renewable energy. As I flew in this morning, it was fascinating to see the number of buildings here in Ostend that have solar panels on their roofs, small buildings and large buildings, and also to see the amount of offshore wind that Belgium has already. So I think you're showing a lot of leadership already. I believe our attendance here at this meeting, 8 governments, the European Commission, the United Kingdom represented as well at ministerial level, and 120 companies, shows a very real shared commitment to accelerating the transition to a green energy future and harnessing the immense potential of offshore renewables. When it comes to climate, the science is very clear. The facts are also very clear on the ground. Our world is getting warmer. Severe weather events are becoming more frequent, and we have no time to waste in acting. We have to be the generation that turns the tide on climate change and biodiversity. Some of you will know Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland and former UN High Commissioner for Refugees, and she says, or human rights rather, and she says that there are 2 things that we're on the cusp of. One is we're on the cusp of climate disaster. The other is that we're on the cusp of deploying the technological advances that allow us to avoid all of that. And we need to make sure that one gets ahead of the other, that we make the changes necessary before it's too late. And I think, as others have said, that's really reinforced by what's happening with Russia and the extent to which energy has been weaponized. So today's discussions are going to be with industry reps, and will emphasize the development of supply chains needed to honour and achieve our renewable energy objectives. We're already making significant progress with the framework on the North Sea's energy cooperation, and a memorandum of understanding between its members and the UK is now in place. And today's Ostend Declaration allows us to go beyond the North Sea to the wider North Seas, including the Irish Sea, the Celtic Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. And Ireland as a country is relatively small, but our seas are 7 times greater than our landmass, and that's what we hope to bring to the table here today. We also must ensure that biodiversity is protected in whatever we do, that our rural, local and coastal communities benefit from opportunities and also the green jobs that will arise. So really looking forward to working closely with our regional partners and the European Commission to build the offshore grids and electricity interconnection that will benefit us all. And that's going to enable us to trade offshore renewable energy with the rest of Europe, but most of all for our citizens at home and our businesses, ensuring that we have security of supply and affordable and predictable prices into the future, and all done with the benefit to our environment. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Xavier, Ce que beaucoup de gens ne savent pas, c'est l'investissement historique que le Luxembourg a toujours fait dans le renouvelable et le rôle que vous avez joué déjà dans la mer du Nord. Et cette invitation, naturellement, est surtout une invitation pour en faire encore davantage.
Oui, comme toujours. Merci pour l'invitation, cher Alexander. Oui, certains d'entre vous, c'est la première question qu'ils m'ont posée quand je suis arrivé, mais qu'est-ce que vous faites ici ? Alors, vous devez savoir que ce n'est pas nouveau que Luxembourg participe à des projets. Je tiens à remercier Mette d'avoir lancé cette initiative ici avec ces pays autour de la table. Le Danemark est le premier pays avec qui nous avons signé justement aussi un accord où le Luxembourg investit avec le Danemark dans l'offshore et qui nous permet donc d'avoir aussi une sécurité jusqu'en 2025, aussi à partir de 2025 concernant l'énergie renouvelable. L'énergie renouvelable est quelque chose dans lequel mon pays croit. Et je dois vous dire que les efforts qui ont été faits sont importants. Nous avons triplé la production d'énergie éolienne au cours des 6 dernières années et nous constatons aussi un succès particulier dans le système d'énergie solaire où en 2021 nous avons installé 15 fois plus d'unités qu'encore en 2016. Ich habe auch bei der letzten Rede, die ich gehalten habe über die Lage der Nation in Luxemburg, auch angekündigt, und das hat der Leo vorher gesagt, als er mit dem Flieger hier über Ostend geflogen ist, wie viele Solarenergie hier in Ostend auf den Häusern auch installiert sind. Und wir sind der Überzeugung, dass heutzutage auch die Wahl, um mitzumachen, soll kein Luxus sein. Wir haben es auch angekündigt, dass der Staat auch den Leuten eine Solarpanel-Möglichkeit auch installiert. Und dann wird es während einer gewissen Zeit der Staat die Produktion bekommen. Und dann nachher werden wir es ermöglichen, dass die Leute es dann zurückbekommen, anstatt zu leihen. Das gibt es ja auch in verschiedenen Ländern, wo dann der Staat zum Beispiel auch ein Dach anmietet. Und hier ist dann die Möglichkeit, dass die Leute nach einer gewissen Zeit dann auch das Material dann bekommen. Wir sind jetzt bei der ganzen Analyse, um zu sehen, ob es sich rentiert oder nicht. Aber wie gesagt, im Moment ist noch in Europa die Solarenergie aber Ausnahme, wenn man mit dem Flieger über eine Hauptstadt oder eine Stadt fliegt. Und es soll für uns, die Ausnahme soll sein, dass nichts drauf ist in Zukunft. The problem that we have is when we see if it's the solar energy or if it's also the wind energy, that the production, and I'm very happy that also some of the colleagues raised up the topic. We see that the energy production, we are very dependent. We saw it with Russia coming from one kind of the products. Now we see with the LNG, even it's trusted partners, but it comes from the other side of the world, or from the south or from the west. And so I think it's very important that if we want to continue in that we also take it as a priority. Solar panels, we were leaders. We were leaders. Now China is a leader. When we see also the turbines, we have, if you look, the biggest companies, very few are European companies. The Chinese, again. We have a relation with China which is for the moment okay, but can tomorrow also be less good. If that's the fact, again, we need really strategic autonomy on our economy and also putting priority on the production of European, made in Europe, also on the capacities of the needed machine and engines to do it. So I just want to thank you again for inviting us here. We see all of us that the climate crisis, is something I remember. We watched it on TV. It was in Nicaragua, it was in Australia, it was in New Zealand. It's now, it's in Europe. And it's not yesterday or tomorrow or in 5 years. It is now that we have to act. And even if it's not too late. So I really hope that we will continue. You can count on Luxembourg. And as you said before, we already have a project, well, not a project, we signed with Denmark, and you will have I have to admit, we don't have the Luxembourgish Sea, and the Moselle and the Sauer is not big enough to have windmills on them. But if we are useful, we will continue to be useful. And this is also an invitation for other colleagues who have no seas. You don't need to have the seas. If you have capacities to do common things, we will make bigger things together. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. Mark, die Noordzee die delen wij tussen België en Nederland en heel veel activiteiten op die Noordzee. Ja, daar zijn we heel sterk met elkaar verbonden. Zoals in zoveel thema's waar heel vaak landen als België, Nederland en Luxemburg samen met elkaar optrekken. Dus heel blij om jou om jou hier te hebben en om al die Nederlandse expertise in economische activiteiten in de Noordzee, om die deel te hebben van onze coalitie.
Dank je, Alexander. On a working visit to the second Maasvlakte in Rotterdam last week, I personally saw how much work energy companies and grid operators are already doing to prepare us for a fossil-free future. They are building wind farms, they are starting operations and developing at the same time the infrastructure we need so that Europe can benefit from the North Sea as a natural source of energy. The Leyen Link project, which we are announcing today, and it is to connect the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, is a good example of these efforts. And they are sorely needed. As you said, Leo Varadkar from Ireland, the IPCC's recent work shows we need to step up our climate efforts. And that means moving towards sustainable energy supplies. I would also add that the Russian invasion of Ukraine has made this all the more urgent. We have to make sure Putin no longer has the means to exert pressure on us by turning off the gas tap. And producing clean energy is the best way to achieve this. And the enormous potential of the North Sea region is indispensable here. And thank you, Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission, that you are willing to do everything to support that whole endeavor. And that's why it's good that we've come together here in Oostende. We're following up on the first and successful North Sea Summit under Mette Frederiksen's leadership in Esbjerg last year. And that France, Luxembourg, the United Kingdom, Norway and Ireland are joining us today in our ambition to turn the North Sea into the green engine of Europe. And with Ireland and with Luxembourg, we are now moving beyond the North Sea, but still discussing the North Sea. And Jonas, you being here from Norway, but also the United Kingdom now being part of this group means also that we are moving beyond a little bit the European Union in its strict borders. And by expanding now this North Sea coalition, we are also boosting, I believe, our joint efforts. Last year, the Netherlands, we already raised our national target to 21 gigawatts by 2030, and that's almost 80% of our current total electricity consumption. But here's an important point. If we are really to produce our own wind turbines and batteries in Europe, we indeed, as Emmanuel Macron said, we need to be less dependent on one single supplier for our critical raw materials. And it is Olaf Scholz who is consistently pleading to remove barriers in permitting procedures so we can speed up our energy projects. It's important here, I believe, that we strike the right balance between nature, fisheries and energy. It's not only North Sea countries that today's agreements are connecting. We can also see and use the North Sea wind energy to produce green hydrogen, which could provide renewable energy to other countries in Europe. So I really believe, Alexander, that meetings like today are vital in this, to share plans and see where we can join forces. So I'm looking forward to our discussions, but again, thank you for organizing this follow-up meeting and to bring us together here, but also for the very warm welcome you provide us. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear Jonas, you've been a long-term partner of the European Union in all questions related to energy, and especially last year. And I think there's a warm thank you from all of us in the role that Norway has played in helping us to get through this crisis. But there's so much more that we can do. And I'm really looking forward to have you part of this coalition with all the possibilities you have in offshore wind, but actually much more than that.
Thank you, Alexander. It's good to be the new kid on the block with my friends around this North Sea emerging biggest energy region, potentially, in the world. Norway is, as you said, the largest provider of energy to Europe. That situation was emphasized during this last year. We've been able to increase our export of gas by some 8 to 10%. That represents 100 terawatt hours of extra energy into Europe. And we will be able to maintain that for the next few years so that we can forward the transition. But we have a lot more to contribute because we have a coastline and we have wind and we have expertise in building heavy things that can stand the pressure from wind and oceans. So we are engaging into offshore wind enthusiastically. And today, this morning, Ursula, we signed a green alliance between Norway and the European Union. We worked on that for a year. Norway has integrated our objectives to reach Paris obligations with the European Union. These are our partners. We have integrated economies. So we want to reach the targets with the European Union partners. And with this Green Alliance, we really exemplify how to do that. And one important part is to take this paradox of Russia's invasion. It has actually accelerated Europe's independence towards energy security with the renewable push. And we want to be part of that. So there are a lot of dimensions here where we have expertise. Offshore wind, especially the floating windmills, which have to build on expertise from heavy structures out offshore. Hydrogen production, be it green, or in the intermediary time, blue, namely by gas, where we extract the CO2, store it 2,000 meters under the seabed. And Norway has done that for 20, 30 years. We know the technology and how to do it. So our ambitions are also high. By 2040, we aim for 30 gigawatt. That is about 1,500 windmills. And for what is linked to the southern part of Norway, we want to see that in a North Sea perspective, and then we will follow up along our coast towards the Barents Sea and Arctic waters, because we also need this energy there. I would also like to emphasize that we as governments should help push this industry to get off the ground. But the key here and the core is the private sector. And I would like to salute you, Alexander, for having followed up what Mette did last year in Esbjerg. And here it is even more impressive, the number of companies with world-class expertise. I'm happy to see there are 10 to 15 Norwegian companies, and they will contribute actively in the side events which are around here. So we are building value chains. They are European, they are North Sea, and they will really make a difference. Norway is really happy to be part of it, and I hope that we will be able to one day invite you to a similar gathering at our shores, and then we will make the windmills turn. Thank you.
Thank you.